Yes. Thank you, Kathy. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to an evening with Kathy Mattea. I'm Seth Young, the director of the Augusta Heritage Center. It is my honor and privilege to bring this programming to you tonight. We'd like to thank everyone for being here, and we'd love to thank our sponsors for making this happen. We're supported generously by the National Endowment for the Arts, the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History, Davis and Elkins College, and we have to give a big shout out to our partners, the West Virginia Humanities Council, who are sponsoring this event tonight and allowing us to make it public on both YouTube and Facebook as it happens. And last but not least, we need to thank you, the supporters of the Augusta Heritage Center. Without your generous contributions in the early part of the pandemic, we would not have been able to pivot so quickly towards an online summer season. We'd like to thank those that gave even before they knew what it was we were going to be doing. It was just a mere 2.5 months ago that this project started, and we were able to transition into an online format, bringing you 150 lessons from 75 Augusta master artists, as well as this wonderful live Zoom event cultural session series. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Miss Emily Miller, the artistic director of the Augusta Heritage Center, and Jenny Hawker, who coordinates our Classic Country Week. If you've never been up here to visit us on historic Davis and Elkins College campus, you really do owe it to yourself to come up and jam on the porch of Halliehurst, or right here where I am, Graceland Manor. So without any further ado, Emily and Jenny, thank you for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Hi. Um, there's Jenny. Oh, hang on a second. Sorry, we were getting us from both of these. Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to say a few things about Zoom before we get started with the actual content of tonight. You are muted, but a way that you can participate in the whole event is that you can chat in the chat window, and at the very end when we have time we'll look through some of those questions and we can convey them to Kathy, and also just feel free to just chat your ideas about all of how wonderful the music is and all of those things, and we'll share that with Kathy too. So I think that is all that I need to teach you about Zoom right now, and I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful Jenny Hawker.
Hi, everybody. Uh, this is really an exciting time for me. I've known Kathy Mattea just slightly, actually, but I don't know. It's like we've been sisters for a long time. It sort of feels that way. Um, as most of you know, Kathy was born here in West Virginia, and that's one of the things I want to talk to her about tonight. I think most of you read her background online, and that you know that she's won 2 Grammys and 4 CMA awards, and had all these #1 hits on the country music charts and everything. Um, so I think you've already read that, but I want to go with her tonight. I'd like to kind of go into some of the backstory of Kathy's life, and also listen to her sing a few songs. So, Kathy, are you there with me?
I'm here. Hi. Hi,
Okay.
Jenny.
All
It
right.
feels miraculous that we can do this. I'm in Minnesota at my husband's family's lake house where we are clearing it out to sell next week. And so just the fact that we can still do this, and it's just I'm very excited. I still can't believe we can still have some semblance of connection and music in this
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's it's a mystery to me. Without Emily,
Emily,
it
the
wouldn't be
goddess
happening here.
of Zoom.
I know. I have to have her right beside me all the time.
I
Uh,
Yeah.
did suggest I could be in another room on another computer, but
no, 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 not in another room. So, Kathy, first of all, uh, how do you think that growing up in West Virginia? Now, I know you didn't grow up. You didn't grow up in a real rural area, though, did you? Didn't you grow up in
Well,
Alabama Crossing?
I grew up just outside of Charleston in Kanawha County.
Mm-hmm.
But if you went like 10 minutes up the road, you were in downtown Charleston. If
Uh-huh.
you went 10 minutes down the road, you were in Poca. You know,
Okay.
and my mom 15 minutes 10 to 15 minutes down the river was like Bancroft, which is the coal town my mom grew up in. So I
Yeah.
kind of was right on the line between rural and, if you call Charleston urban, now that I've
Yeah.
been to other places. I mean, it was the
Yeah.
big city for me when I was a kid.
Right. Right. So, eh, when you look at your singing and you know your voice and how you interpret a song and everything, how do you think growing up in West Virginia affected that?
I've come to realize that being from West Virginia is the point of view of everything for me, everything I do. It's like the fish saying, "Where's the water?" You know.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh,
it's been. I've had people come up to me and say, "But you always talk about West Virginia and you always talk about where you're from," and I'm like, "Well, yeah. What else are you gonna do? I mean, my whole family's from here. My parents. I grew up in the same house. They died in that house, and so my roots run deep. My family, was thick and close knit, and even when I left, I went home a lot, and I still do. It just, it's my home base, and so I think it has. There's a kind of fierce point of view about the world that comes from when you're from West, when you know where you're from, and when you know what the mountains look like, and when you know your neighbors, and when your family has grown up all around you.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you think it affects, particularly your singing? Do you think it does anything to your the sound of your singing, the way you sing?
I think I have grieved about it because I think I left before I had a chance to get it deep in my voice. I was just on fire about music, and I would learn from anyone who would teach me anything. But there was, oh, my alarm's going off because it's time for me to go talk to Jenny. Sorry, my phone was.
It's time for you to do that. To go talk to Jenny.
Sorry, some, my phone just went off. I think, what I missed, my great grandmother, she and my great grandfather were itinerant preachers, and she was the singer. She was the a cappella singer, and they would go through the mountains and do tent revivals all over West Virginia in the summertime. So she had one of those voices like you have, and Hazel had, and you know, Alice has, and I think had I had anyone sitting beside me singing that kind of music, I would have gotten it in my bones young. But I had to go back and pick it up
Mm-hmm.
later on. And when I did, I was terrified that I was going to sound inauthentic somehow. And I
Huh.
still am, really. Even sitting here tonight, I'm a little bit afraid that, yeah, I can't, it's not as deep in me. Music is deep in me, but that authentic West Virginia thing, yeah, I mourn sometimes that I didn't get it from the time I was two. My mom was tone deaf. She didn't think she could sing.
Uh-huh.
So she didn't sing.
Yeah.
So I had to find my own way into singing.
Huh. Wow, you're giving me chills here talking about this.
Hmm.
I never see, and you and I are just getting to know each other too. So,
Hmm.
I didn't know all this. I didn't know you felt that way. Huh. So, when you took off,
It
like you
says,
said,
please boost Kathy's. I'm sorry, Jenny.
yeah,
Someone just said that maybe you guys, there are people who can't hear me very well, and you might
We're
need more
getting
volume. And
you're good on Zoom, but we're getting that the YouTube is a little bit
oh, I
low.
see.
But if you did boost just a little bit, somewhere in
Okay.
between where we turned it down from before,
Let me
maybe.
see if I can do that. All
Oh,
right. How's?
people say volume is better on YouTube. I think the change that I made on my end might have helped things.
oh,
Oh, okay.
you did.
Good. All right then.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
It can be so frustrating when you're on the other end and something you
yeah,
really want to listen. And yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
So, I know when you were young and I mean, when did you take off and leave home to go do music
Uh,
business?
well, I So I skipped the first grade. I was kind of the whiz kid in my community, uh, and was had this big brain, and it's a long story, but my first word was Westinghouse, because in the high chair in the kitchen we had a Westinghouse stove, and I kept asking what every letter was and what the word meant. And that was the kind of kid I was. I was like, can I just get language and grow up so I can get on with it? It was kind of
Yeah.
the way I came into the world. My poor mother, God bless her, because I was like a fire hose, and so I skipped the first grade. So I graduated from high school when I was 16. And I always say that music saved my life because I was mentally much quicker and further ahead than most of the kids um, in my class. And I was emotionally kind of immature for my age. I couldn't fit in because the kids don't like it when you know the answer before them, and you can't wait to tell them because they'll be so happy that you know the answer. And I got a lot of attention from the adults, but I was kind of a freak, and I went away to Girl Scout camp when I was 10 at Camp Ann Bailey in Greenbrier County. And it is one of the most beautiful spots on the planet still, I
Oh,
think. And I discovered there when I was 10 years old that if you had a guitar and you knew all the songs, you didn't have to fit in. You didn't have to know the right thing to say. Everybody would gather around you and you could make this thing happen. That was bigger than you and bigger than anyone. Everyone wanted to sing. And all of a sudden I found a way in, and I found my tribe. Then I just became on fire about music. I wanted a guitar. I had taken piano lessons. I joined the choir, joined the band. I joined the church folk group. I did community theater. I could not get enough. And I found my people, and I found the way to connect that was beyond, just this kind of conversation. So I went away to college. I graduated when I was 16, and I went to WVU. And I was a physics and chemistry major because I had the big brain and I could make the easy grades. And I met these people when I'd only been there maybe a month or two, and they all had guitars and they were as fired up about music as I was. So I'd cram for the test. I'd cram for the chemistry test and make an A. And in every single other spare moment of time, I played music. Just played music, wrote music. We jammed on the porch in Morgantown until the police would come and block off the streets on a Friday night. And they finally said, "Will you just go into a bar and name yourselves, because that's why we have bars, and we don't want anyone to get killed." And so we did that. And after 2 years, the short version of the story is, after 2 years, one of the guys in the band, of course, he was graduating. I was at the end of my sophomore year, and he said, "I'm going to go to Nashville and be a songwriter." And I just always wanted to do it. And one day he looked at me and he said, "Well, you can come with me if you want." And I thought, if he's in Nashville living this great life, and I'm being some, engineer somewhere, I'm never gonna forgive myself. So, oh my God, I just got a shot of my makeup. I look terrible. Um, so anyway, that was kind of how that. Yes, it's going well, and I can't. It's hard for me to talk to them in mid-sentence. I know you're just wanting to help me. My love just walked in. Um, so that was kind of how I got to Nashville. He, by the way, is now a dentist in Richmond, Virginia, and
oh.
I'm still doing this. I think that's pretty fun.
And you're still there in Nashville.
I'm still there.
All
It's been a
right.
great ride.
So, uh, when you think about West Virginia, and get a feeling of wanting to be back there. You're homesick or something, and um, what song do you like to do that kind of takes you back to West Virginia?
Oh, you know, this was the first time I met you, because you called me up on stage to sing this song with Hazel and you and a whole bunch of people
Yes,
at Folk Alliance.
yes,
And
I
I
remember.
have to say that this is part of what's really kind of I get nervous about, because I got music that was fed to me. And I didn't have a big record collection. I didn't have a lot of money to buy records. So I have big holes missing. And so I didn't know this song then.
Ah,
And so I was learning it on stage on the fly, which I'm sure everybody could see. And I've thought about that for
no.
many years. But but I recorded it later on, and Tim and Molly O'Brien sang the harmony on it. And
Ah.
the day we did the harmonies, we all kind of reminisced about how we had all grown up in West Virginia and we'd all left West Virginia and how much of it was still in us. And I have to say, listening to Hazel sing this song and listening to Tim and Molly sing it with me, there's times I've been moved to tears just by
Mhm.
the song. So, do you want me to do all of it or just part
Yeah.
of
Oh,
it?
yes. Do it.
Okay. West Virginia, oh my home. West Virginia is where I belong. In the dead of the night, still in the quiet, I slip away like a bird in flight back to those hills, the place that I call home. It's been years now since I left there. And this city life's about got the best of me. I can't remember why I left so free, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. But I can sure remember where I come from. West Virginia, oh my home. West Virginia's where I belong. In the dead of the night and still in the quiet, I slip away like a bird in flight back to those hills, the place that I call home. Well, I paid the price for the leaving. This life I found is not the one. This life I have is not the one I thought I'd find. Just let me live, love, let me die, cry. Ah, just let me live, love, let me cry. But when I die, when I go, just let me die among the friends who remember when I'm gone. West Virginia, oh my home. West Virginia's where I belong. In the dead of the night and still in the quiet, I slip away like a bird in flight back to those hills, the place that I call home. Home, home, home. Oh, I can see it so clear in my mind. Home, home, home. I can almost smell the honeysuckle vine. In the dead of the night, still in the quiet, I slip away like a bird in flight back to those hills, the place that I call home. In the dead of the night, in the still and the quiet, I slip away like a bird in flight back to those hills, the place that I call home.
Oh,
Forgot the second. I
oh
forgot
yeah.
the order of the second verse.
You know, Kathy, I watched Hazel herself, Hazel Dickens, the one who wrote that song. I watched her on the steps of the cultural center in Charleston sing that song that she wrote, and she never sang the first verse. She,
Oh,
I don't know why. I don't know why she never sang the
well,
first
you know,
verse.
sometimes when you have sung a song for a long, long time,
Hmm.
your body sings it. Like sometimes if I think about it too much, then you can tell I'm thinking about it. Sometimes I just have to like, it's almost like I just step out
Hmm.
and say to myself, you do it. And I think sometimes when you do that, you know, you wind up starting, you lose because you take your brain out of it, which is when it's the best, you know. It's
Yeah.
when Hazel, that's why Hazel was so freaking great, you know.
Yeah.
It never
Yeah.
came from her. I looked at her one time. I got to meet her at Folk Alliance that year, and I got to say, I've learned so much from just digging into your songs and your singing.
Mhm.
And I said, I can't even tell you, like learning to sing Black Lung was like a master class. I had to relearn everything I thought I knew about singing. And she was like, well, my brother, he had the Black Lung and he was up there in Bluefield. And she just like wouldn't have it. There was no like talking about singing. For her, it was just so organic.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
loved that. It was such a lesson I feel like my whole life's
Yeah.
just been stripping away the layers of what I think I know about singing.
Kathy, when I met her, it was here at Augusta, because I had just heard her record that she had done, and I came here to be. I just took a songwriting class. Like, I would never write a song, but that's what she was teaching. And I just followed around 4 steps behind her, And but she found out that I grew up in the old Primitive Baptist church that she did, and
Uh,
so yeah. So she said, I didn't know anybody here at camp. That's my first music camp, and so and I lived very close to Elkins, and she saw me Tuesday. She got me by myself, and she said, "How's it going for you?" And I said, "Nah, I don't know anybody. Everybody knows where they're going, and I think I'm just going to go home." And she said, "No, no, no, don't do that. They came here to study what you grew up with.
ah, I
Just
love that.
just stick with me. Just stick with me." So I was so in awe of her that I didn't have any idea what stick with me meant, what that meant, but I was willing to hang out and find out. And I have this little note, a little torn off piece of paper that I carry in my wallet to this day. That's been, I don't know what, 30 years ago, so maybe that this happened. And that she had stuck it on my door and said, "I came to get you for lunch. Where the hell were you?"
Oh, that's great.
And
Oh,
I carry that with me all the time.
it's
So
like she knew you were cut from the same cloth.
yeah, and I just, I've just remembered that that's what it feels like, though, to come to a music camp and for the first time, and it seems like everybody knows everybody but you know,
Yeah,
and then, and to always watch out for people it's their first time.
yeah,
Try to do
yeah.
that.
Important.
So now, I don't know if you mind getting into it or not, but I think everybody would be interested to know. I know you had a pretty traumatic thing happen with your voice, right
Yeah.
when you were, as they say, arcing. You were, your career was, well underway, and then something happened with you. Did you just not be able to talk, or what happened?
Well, I've had two things happen. One was not very many people know this, but I can talk about it now. When I was at the height of my kind of, you know, the peak of my career in my 30s, my mom kind of, my mom sort of disowned me.
Oh,
And she said to me, "You've changed." And I went to all my friends and everyone else in my family. I was like, "Have I changed?" And they're like, "No, Kathy, we all knew you before and you're the same." But what I know now is my mom died of Alzheimer's. And
oh,
so it's a very common thing early on that people get they kind of turn, they have a turn in their personality. And this was pretty early, but I had so much stress from that because she was my mom, she was my mama. And she was my anchor in the world. And a lot of why I had the wherewithal to think that maybe I could do this was because she just kept telling me, "You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it."
mm-hmm.
So I just kind of got so stressed out. I could not make peace with this in my mind. So I would wake up in the middle of the night and I was just dogged. And one day I had an injury to my vocal cord. I wasn't taking very good care of myself. I was at the end of a tour and I was on the last song of the show in England, and it was the last night of the tour, and I went up for a high note on this big finale song I did, and it came out like Joe Cocker, which was great, but I don't sound like Joe Cocker, and not on purpose anyway. And so it turned out I had injured my vocal cords, and I had a kind of a blood blister on one of them. And they wound up doing surgery. It's a long story, but they did surgery, and it's been just fine ever since. And when I hit menopause, there was just this moment where I realized just somewhere it was probably my 50s, mid 50s maybe.
Yeah.
I just turned 61. Um, and I just go up for something that I've hit the same way my whole life, 30 years. I've been singing some of these songs and it just wouldn't come out. And I'd think, oh, I'll try harder tomorrow night. And I finally realized I was going to have to unpack this. And what I think happened was when I hit menopause, um, someone told me that they had been through the same thing, and a doctor told them that their vocal cords just separated a little bit on the bottom. So what happens is that transition part between your chest voice and your head voice went down. So I'd be singing a note and I'd be like, oh, I know how to do this, but it wouldn't. My voice didn't function the same. So I had to, like, this guitar is tuned down a half step right now, and all these songs will be pretty comfortable for me today. Half the songs are tuned down. 18 Wheels and a Dozen Roses is exactly where it always was. I don't know why, but so I found I had a longtime voice teacher, and she was dying. Actually, she was aging and had turned into kind of a second mom for me. And I found a new teacher and just dug in for about 3 years and started working again. And, I would say to her, oh, well, I think I can live with this. I think I can live with this. She was like, oh, Kathy, please don't do that. Please don't say, she said, please do not in any way think your voice is diminished. It's different as you get older, but it's not worse. And it took me a long time to emotionally let go. And what finally happened was, I was in a grief workshop. A friend of mine is this great teacher, and she was coming to Nashville, and I just signed up. I didn't have any particular grief, but I just signed up. And but she's just so great. I just like to be with her. So, and we did this exercise, and they had just shown the Ken Burns country music documentary on PBS, and I was in that, and they showed the segment that I was in, and I watched myself singing "Where Have You Been" on Austin City Limits. And we did this exercise, and I was like, I want that voice. I want that voice. I want to be her again. And it's like, I'm fine with my wrinkly face. I'm fine with my gray hair, obviously, but I could not make peace with my voice. And then in this exercise, I realized, well, I don't have that voice anymore, but I have the closest thing on this planet to that voice. No one else comes as close to having that voice as me, and that's good enough for me. And all right, bring it on. What's next? I mean, just something just completely. I stepped through a portal at that moment.
Yeah. All right. Jeez. Now I've got chills because I've been going through so much of that too. I
Really?
totally lost my A, and yes, and then now I think I don't think I can hit that G either above middle C. And but still something about what I'm doing moves people.
Oh,
So
Ginny, your voice is so rich. It's so rich. And that's what happened to me. I was singing one day. Bill and I, my guitar player Bill, we jammed until COVID. We jammed once a week, and we were just talking about songs and stuff. And we pulled out this old song, and it has a low note in it.
uh,
And we were just jamming away, and I'm singing, and I hit the low note, and I'm like, what the heck was that? What
yeah,
was that? I can't do that. And I found this whole other gear. I found this other thing in my voice that was rich in a new way. And I thought, oh, I'm losing something and I'm gaining something. And so I thought, I've been thinking of my voice like this, like a Volvo. Like I got an old Volvo, and she's classy and dependable, and she's not flashy, but she's, it's a good, solid car. It's going to get you through. It's going to, bring things across. And that day I thought, well, maybe it's not a Volvo. Maybe it's a vintage Ferrari, and I just don't know how to drive it yet.
there you go. I like that. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop thinking about that, and worrying about not having, where did my G and my A go? I'm going to stop doing that. Um, was there a particular song that you knew that, your confidence was back, when,
Well, I had to go on the road before I knew if it was going to come back or not.
oh,
Because I realized if I waited till I was perfect or whatever
yeah.
that is, that I was never going to go back. So I was like, Bill, we got to take the living room out on the road. And so we started a living room tour, And I would walk out on stage and say, my voice is wonky, and sometimes it's like an angel, and sometimes it's like, what is this voice? And I said, but I'll give you 100% of what I got tonight. And the audience loved it. I mean, they were so supportive, and we went through it together. And if I couldn't find my way, or I felt shaky on something, I'd just start that verse all over again. It didn't freaking matter. That's what I got to learn. It just didn't matter that much. It mattered to me way more than anybody else. But this was the song that I was sitting in the living room when I went, oh, I've lost something, but I've got something I never had before. And so this is the song, and you'll know it. It's a classic. It was the 3rd of June, another sleepy, dusty Delta day. I was out chopping cotton, and my brother was baling hay. And at dinner time we stopped, and we walked back to the house to eat. And Mama hollered out the back door, y'all remember to wipe your feet. Then she said, I got some news this morning, the Choctaw Ridge. Today, Billie Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Papa said to Mama as he passed around the black-eyed pea, Billie Joe never had a lick of sense. Pass the biscuits, please. There's 5 more acres on the lower 40 I got to plant. And Mama said it was a shame about Billie Joe anyhow. Seems like nothing ever comes to no good up on Choctaw Ridge. And now Billie Joe McAllister's jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Brother said he recollected when he and Tom and Billie Joe put a frog down my back at the Carroll County Picture Show. And wasn't I talking to him after church last Sunday night? I'll have another piece of apple pie. You know, it just don't seem right. I saw him at the sawmill yesterday on Choctaw Ridge. And now you tell me Billie Joe's jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Mama said to me, child, what's happened to your appetite? Well, I've been cooking all morning and you haven't touched a single bite. That nice young preacher with a tailor dropping by today said he'd be pleased to have dinner on Sunday. Oh, by the way, he said he saw a girl looked a lot like you up on Choctaw Ridge, that she and Billie Joe was throwing something off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Well, a year's come and gone since we heard the news about Billie Joe. Brother Mary, Becky Thompson, they bought a store in Tupelo. There was a virus going round, Papa caught it and he died last spring. And now Mama doesn't seem to want to do much of anything. I spent a lot of time picking flowers up on Choctaw Ridge and drop them into the muddy water off the Tallahatchie Bridge. I drop them into the muddy water off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Yikes! Yikes! What is that note? That bridge? What is that
Low
note?
C.
You're kidding. That's where
I've
Sarah.
had it. I
That's
could
Sarah-
hit it, but I could never use it. And I'm telling you, Ginny, I sat in my living room and hit that note and was like, where did that come from? And I realized, oh, this has been the lesson really, is that if I get so caught up in what I used to sound like, I don't appreciate what I have now. And I rob myself of these years of singing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that. It's been too much of a gift to talk myself out of it.
Yeah. That is such a good lesson for all of us. All of us.
Yeah.
Me.
It's
I'm really. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you, honey.
yeah.
Okay. I
And
really.
I've sung with you in the last year, and I'm here to tell you, if when you say you've lost anything, I would never know. I would never know. And so I can hear myself wanting to say things to you that I need to hear myself. So
Yeah.
maybe we just need to talk on the phone every couple weeks.
Well,
Hi, Flora.
I think I would like to have the people, send in some questions on the chat line if they,
Sure.
and so they're going to be sending in some questions.
Okay.
So now, once you get this house settled down and everything, are you going to be out on the road doing things? Not now.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's been the kind of a stretch, to just sort of, you have to be ready anytime to go back.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, like, Bill, who's played with me for 30 years, plays that song. That's the first time I've played all those weird chords at the end myself. But I've been practicing like a crazy person. So there's a part of me that was like, I'm talking about someone flinging themselves off a bridge and I can't look up and go, yay, I just hit that weird chord. But so I've been just woodshedding, because I want to be ready. And so I have dates on the books in September. I can't believe with the surges that are happening that
Yeah.
we're all going to get on planes and go gather in small rooms. So
Yeah.
I'm just, I think the stretch is to just sit with the not knowing
Yeah.
and wait.
That's-
And so for me, I'm just trying to enjoy playing music. And I have a jam session with one of my band guys, like a socially distanced jam session every week. And we keep the songs up and work on parts and surprises for people. And it's just the way it is.
Yeah. All right. We're beginning to get some questions.
Yeah, we
for
have
you.
some questions in here. I've
Okay.
Let's see. One is, and I'm sorry if I missed some of your questions here. So, are you writing any songs during this time? Says Noelle.
No, I'm not. I am sort of a singer who writes, not really a writer who sings. So writing isn't all that fun for me. I am doing some essay writing, and I was all set to like start a blog, and I had my first little thing. I'd finally gotten an essay where I thought kind of my sense of humor got onto the paper, and it was all about making sourdough bread and the adventure of my first loaf and all that. And then the George Floyd stuff happened, and I thought you can't post a funny essay about sourdough bread when the world is going crazy in front of you. So maybe at some point I might do. It's that kind of writing that seems to be coming out of me. And I had someone say to me early on, Kathy, you don't have to get in the best shape of your life. You don't have to write your novel. You don't have to write your next album. And I just thought, I'm just gonna sit still and wait for the next directive. And every time I do that, that's how the Cole album happened. It kind of it like rose up in me. And I thought, if there's anything I've learned from this voice thing, it's like not to force anything.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have a lot of little ideas of what I might want to do next, and I'm just not pushing anything.
Yeah.
And
All
so
right.
that,
All
that
right.
feels
So
right.
give us another question there.
Sure. One question came in. What do you love most about duet singing? And I know you were
Oh,
talking about wanting to sing with Ginny, so
singing with Ginny is so fun. I crashed one of her classes at WVU. We were doing residencies at the same time, and I was in another class, and it got out like 30 minutes before she was done, and I just came walking in the back door and down the aisles while she was singing and just burst into harmony with her. Just, I was like, I'm a groupie. Can I
Fun.
sing with you? It was so fun.
Yeah.
Um, the thing I really like about harmony singing is this third thing happens um, where there's an overtone and it's almost like a buzz. It's like this third thing happens. It's like a third dimension out here. And when you're in the zone, there is something in both voices that's, and I don't know how to explain overtones, but there's a reason that a guitar sounds different than a piano, or me singing a G note sounds different than Ginny singing a G note, and it has to do with the overtones. But when you're doing that, there are tones that will, if you go listen to the Louvin brothers, that happened a lot with their stuff, and um, it's like magic. It's like this magic dimension that shows itself that's bigger than any one voice. And I love that about
Yeah,
harmony
I
singing.
often tell students, that when you get that harmony lock, you get a real on some notes. Sometimes it's just a syllable of a note, and there's a
Yeah,
harmony lock that the little bones in your ears kind of vibrate a little bit, and you go, "Oh, that's what I was looking for right there. That's what I."
exactly. When you're both saying the vowel sound the same way, and then
Yeah.
you realize it's there, and then the next time you sing it, you can lean in on the next chorus in that spot and kind of milk it a little bit. It's
Yes.
so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's such a human thing. Like, we were just talking about Flora likes to sing. Flora's 3.5, Emily's daughter. And, kids sing all the time. It's our birthright.
Yeah.
But when you do that harmony thing, it's like dancing together or something. It's like something that connects you not to just to the other person, but to something going on behind the curtain that's bigger than all of us.
Mm-hmm. Several of the people want to know about choosing a key that you sing in.
Oh,
First of all, do you sometimes sing a song usually in one key, but just before you go on, you say, "No, tonight it's going to be in this key. I feel it not in G, but I think I've got enough adrenaline going. I need to do this in A or something,
yeah,
and the reverse can be true. If you're really tired and worn out, I think I really would sound better to do this in G tonight.
yeah.
And also, how do you choose that key?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think for a long time, I had this thing in my head that like I had to do everything in the original key or it wasn't authentic, it wasn't real.
Hmm.
And I think I stuck with that for too long.
Hmm.
Um, and, robbed maybe my audiences of the enjoyment of the purity of just the singing of the song because I had to prove that I could do it in that key or something. It's just an ego thing. And I've let go of that more in recent years. I just tuned my guitar down a half step this afternoon um, and
Oh,
went through some songs. And so, like Ode to Billie Joe stays in C. I know that that's in C because it's a recent song. So I capoed up a half step to
oh,
do that. And so, but everything else, like West Virginia, my home, I did a half step up and on the record. And I've just stopped apologizing for that anymore. Music's just too much of a gift to apologize for any bit of it,
yes,
And once I can make it not about my singing or about what someone might expect from knowing my music for a long time, and just make it about what is the most authentic way into this song
hmm,
on this day.
yeah,
What serves the song is always the best. And so just the idea that someone would say, "Oh, I'm a little tired today. I think I'm going to take it down a half step. Let's do a chorus there." Yeah, that's the way we're going to do it tonight.
yeah,
That's I just think that's honoring the song, which is what we're always those of us who sing lyrics, that's what we're here to do. Those words is bring that forth and
yes,
inhabit it.
yeah. I think when you're singing that West Virginia, my home, you know, I always feel like when I'm singing a song anyway that I need to put my listeners there, whether it's a little song jam, it doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
big audience, but I need to put them in the place. that song, that story is coming from, you know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'll let Hazel's words do it. I don't have to worry about the words because she's was so magical at doing that, putting them into place. But
Hmm.
I want, even if no one's ever been to West Virginia, they've never been to Appalachia. I want them somehow or other to be able to see a little small cottage that's, where the mist is still hanging in there, uh, late in the morning and everything. I want them to be able to kind of sense what that's about, even if they have never been, south of Brooklyn. I want them to feel,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And, so that's such a good point because for me, I mean, there are specific pictures of specific places that go through my mind when I sing that song.
yeah,
And when I sing In the Dead of the Night and the Still and the Quiet, I think about Hazel being in Baltimore and
mm-hmm,
pining for the mountains of West Virginia. And sometimes I think about me on the bus late at night, thinking about where I came from. And all those things are, it's almost like watching a movie while I'm singing it. I think of my voice as the movie projector
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, 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 yeah. Someone wanted to know too. Are there any, you know, younger people out there now, either singers or songwriters, that you're kind of excited about, that you really,
Oh, yes. Wait, I didn't have time to pre-think about this. Um, Jason Isbell is
oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
I mean, we all love Jason Isbell. What a writer, what a singer, what a player.
How about
Um,
Brandy Carlisle?
Brandy Carlisle is amazing. I went to the CMAs this year for the first time in many years, and we were in this little tiny dressing room together, changing in different like curtained off areas, and she was singing, and I started singing harmony with her, and she was just very, very nice.
Oh,
She's amazing. Brandy Clark is really good.
mhm.
She's another singer songwriter that I just love. And there's a lot of young people coming up through a songwriting tradition that are not so much about the radio, that are really, really. Margot Price is one of
Oh,
those
yeah. I like
young
Margaret.
women. Um, and so, there are young people who revere John Prine.
Yeah,
And we need both sides of that coin. We need the people who hold up Garth Brooks in their mind, who is also a great songwriter and
yeah.
a great performer. But we also need people who express themselves first and then let that lead. And I think that's part of what makes it interesting is that you have people who approach it from all those different points of view. And it's what makes music interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ah, boy, I could go on with this all night long.
And we could go for a couple hours, couldn't
I
we? I
know
mean, we don't have to stop, do we? I mean, this is so fun.
you be
I,
hearing other questions.
well, I like your question. I was interested in you asking this question.
Oh, about coal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
when you wrote that album, when you did that whole album on coal,
yeah,
AL coal. Okay, can you kind of briefly tell them why you decided to do that album?
sure, sure. So for years, I'd had this idea that would float around, but would never gel into anything. It was a record about home, about West Virginia, or about the mountains, or about Appalachia, or something. But I couldn't about home. I couldn't get the idea to show itself completely. And then the Sago mine disaster happened, and that was before Upper Big Branch. That was it was, there hadn't been a mine disaster for a long time. And um, the Mannington mine disaster had happened when I was 9, and I can remember it was on the national news when we only had 3 stations. We only got the 3 main networks, and it was the lead story every night. And I thought, this is really big. And I just remember my mom and dad, who both my grandfathers were coal miners, and I remember my mom and dad were like, that whole week that these miners were all trapped from the Mannington disaster, where like 79 miners died. And they were like, it was like they'd lost family members or something. Like they were being brought back in time to remembering. And I was young and I didn't understand. And when Sago happened, I found myself like tracking the news all day long, checking CNN before I went to bed, turning it on first thing in the morning, staying up till 1 in the morning, waiting to see if they had found them. Sometimes I'd be driving down the interstate in the middle of the day and I just burst into tears. I'm like, why am I crying for people I don't know in a place I've never been? And maybe it's just, my mother and grandmother and grandfather's genes, in me, and something's vibrating. But I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll do. We sang. There was a big funeral, and we were asked to sing on the Larry King show to help them when they were covering the funeral, to help them get out of their show. And so a bunch of us musicians were hanging out, and one of them said to me, "Well, Kathy, this is what music's for, is to help us process grief we don't always even understand." And I thought, maybe that's what I'll do with all these feelings. I'll just make a record about coal mining. That's what I'll do. And I wound up recording the greatest hits of coal mining, but I didn't know a lot of those songs. They were from the generation before me.
Oh.
So it was like an archival dig. And during that time, I heard stories. My family told stories. All these little bits of stories that I'd heard my whole life got stitched together like in a quilt. It was like the whole thing came into focus. And I thought coal was my parents' story. And I didn't realize it, but Cole was my manager. We went back to take pictures in my hometown, and he said, "Kathy, you grew up in the shadow of coal." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you waxing poetic, or like what's?" And he said, "Look," and he pointed, and the biggest coal-fired electrical plant east of the Mississippi is within sight of my parents. You can see the steam from the towers from my parents' house. And I just thought, oh, that's good jobs. We were all excited because it was good jobs when they built it, So I got to really claim a lot of my own story that I hadn't really seen, because I hadn't really had anybody show it to me, that it was important and that it was in me and that I had a right to sing these songs. And so I felt a bit like an imposter at first. And then I was like, no, it doesn't matter. I am singing for people who don't have a voice. I'm singing a story of people who no one knows about or have forgotten about or want to hear about again. And there's a certain kind of, Homer Hickam took me down in a mine when I made this
I
record.
thought you did. You went down in a coal mine, didn't you?
In a coal mine with Homer. It was 6 foot, it was high coal. It was 6 foot high seam. And I got to run a long wall miner, and I got to meet some of the miners and hang out for the day. And we were 1,000 feet down and 2 miles in. And you think these
Say
people,
again, you were where 1,000 feet down.
and 2 miles into the face. It was 2 miles of a drive
Boy.
to get to the face, because this was a huge, huge, huge mine. It had been going for years. And I thought, yeah, these people, they leave the world we all know and they go underground, and then they protect each other. They try to keep each other from getting hurt or killed, and they show up for each other, and they bond together like firemen do, or anybody who's in a dangerous job. And it's its own world, and these songs bring that forth, and the beauty of it in the face of all the hardship and danger. And it's such a complex thing, and I just felt like I was able to honor my own family. And I know you're going to ask me to sing a song from this, that record.
Will you do that?
Okay. Yeah, I want to say I haven't played this song in a long time, but I love this song so much. And Cy Khan wrote this song, and I got to know him because of that. And he grew up, his family was from Western Pennsylvania, and they were anthracite coal miners. And all the West Virginia coal is bituminous soft coal. And this is a song about a big strike that went on in the 70s. The Brookside strike, where there was all this tension, and the picket line, it just kept going on and on and on and on and on. It got worse and worse and worse until it was almost a year. And one night somebody came across the picket line taunting the miners, and they all got into it. And the guy in the truck wound up shooting a young miner in the face with a shotgun. And he wound up dying. And that was the thing that finally made everybody wake up and go, let's try to find a way through this so we don't have to do this anymore. But it took somebody dying to do it. And so that's what Cy is, just a poet. And this is the story of that. The young man's name was Lawrence Jones. Well, the night is thick as silence, you can't cut it with a knife. A man lies in the hospital, draining out his life. The trucks are on the back road and the darker headlights shine. And there's one man dead on that Harlan County line. Oh, anger like poison is eating at your bones. Your thoughts are loud as gunfire, your face is hot as coal. Bitterness like buckshot explodes inside your mind. And there's one man dead on that Harlan County line. Oh, a miner's life is fragile, it can shatter just like ice. But those who bear the struggle have always paid the price. There's blood upon the contract like vinegar in wine. And there's one man dead on that Harlan County line. From the river bridge at High Splint to the Brookside Railroad track, you can feel the long strength building that can never be turned back. The dead go forward with us, not one is left behind. 'Cause there's one man dead on that Harlan County line. Well, the night is cold as iron, you can feel it in your bones. It settles like a shroud upon the grave of Lawrence Jones. The graveyard shift is walking from the bathhouse into the mine. And there's one man dead on that Harlan County line. One man dead on that Harlan County line. One miner dead on that Harlan County line.
Ah, great. Ooh, what a
And
song.
I should tell people, just to remind people, that there was a documentary made about that strike in 1975. It won the Oscar for Best Documentary. It's called Harlan County, USA, and Hazel is singing in that movie.
Oh,
And we'll raise the hair on the back of your neck.
yeah, yeah. Well, you do that. You do that for us, honey.
Thank
Tonight you've done that, and
Thank
I love you so much. I'm so glad we had a chance to do this, just to sit and
Me
talk.
too.
Yeah,
Me
it's been
too.
wonderful.
Let's do it in person next year.
Yes,
Make
absolutely,
that happen.
absolutely. We'll do it in person. We okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow. Well, let me say once again, thank you so much to Kathy Mattea for singing and just visiting with us. It was such a pleasure. We're putting in a form in the chat for an evaluation form from the West Virginia Humanities Council, who provide us with funding, and it's very helpful to them when you fill out the form for events that we put on. And so we would very much appreciate it. We love the West Virginia Humanities Council and the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History. They are
Yes.
both state agencies that help us so much, and they both came through with lots of COVID-19 relief funding for arts organizations and humanities organizations all over the state. So let's do them a solid and fill out the form. And Seth posted the link in the chat. And I just want to reiterate that we have all had such a wonderful time. Kathy, can you switch to your gallery view so you can see everybody, and we'll all show you some appreciation.
This is the biggest Zoom meeting I've ever been in, ever.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody, show Kathy your appreciation. Yeah. There's many pages of
Yes.
everybody. There's many pages of everybody just loving you. Oh, Ginny wants to see all the pages. Here, this is all the
Oh.
pages of everybody. Keep showing your love, everybody. Showing your love.
Yay.
Yeah.
Your hands get tired.
Yeah, I know. So it's been such a pleasure to have you here. Sorry, it's hard for me doing both computers. And from the Augusta Heritage Center, of course, just a huge thank you for
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
doing
darling.
this.
Thank you all. You
Of
just
course,
made my week. It's my
I
year.
should also say my
Great.
thanks to the National Endowment for the Arts, who also help out Augusta, and our college, Davis Hopkins College, so nobody feels left out.
All
We
right.
love all of them.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Let's
Yeah.
sing together next year, Ginny. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All
Yes.
right. I'm ready.
Oh my gosh,
All right.
Kathy, we just need you at our honky tonk, the honky tonk night in the dance pavilion after
Yeah.
the concert.
All right.
That's where it's
I'm
at.
there. We'll figure it out. All
I'm
right.
considering that a contract.
Okay, bye everyone. I'm going to end the meeting, but I will post the forum on our Facebook page as well for the Humanities Council.
It will also be archived on the website under week 1 resources if you'd like to watch again. We'll also can chat about it in the private Facebook group, Augusta Online.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all so
All right.
much, and we will see you on the other side of all of this.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. Stay healthy, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'm ending.